RMJ movie reviews back again, everybody. And coming with my final movie review a day late into the first day of March of the final Black History Month movie review, but this can also just be a slash plain old action classic movie review. Bad Boys from 1995, starring Mr. Martin Lawrence and Mr. Will Smith. Yeah, I might have had that backwards, but whatever. Directed by Michael Bay and produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Another one that I have a lot of childhood memories with. I still remember, give you a little bit of history on Bad Boys, okay? At the time, in 1995, Mr. Martin Lawrence was a very, very, very funny comedian, and Mr. Will Smith had become a very, very funny comedian. And they both, they didn't have competing sitcoms, but Will Smith was on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and, you know, he went from a kind of a funny, goofy rapper to a sitcom comedy actor. And Mr. Martin Lawrence had been doing films like Do the Right Thing, and he was in House Party, and he did the awful House Party 2. Actually, House Party 2 wasn't that awful. It was okay. House Party 3 was awful, which he wasn't in. But, and Martin had his TV show Martin, which I used to really love both shows. I was really more of a fan of Martin Lawrence as a comedian versus Will Smith, but I used to watch the Fresh Prince infrequently. Martin I used to watch faithfully, kind of until I don't know if it was the third or fourth season where it kind of just started to kind of seemed when Martin lost his mind behind the scenes. The show just kind of really, in the fifth season of Martin, was just horrible. You know, but Fresh Prince stayed pretty consistent from beginning to end. But, you know, I remember just being a 13-year-old teenager, and when we all found out that Martin and Will Smith came together to make this movie, you know, because back then, the internet was just kind of just starting up. You know, it wasn't like it is now where, like, you get all these internet blogs about, two great comedians are going to make this action movie. You know, we didn't know about Bad Boys until, like, maybe, like, a little bit before it came out, you know, which it came out in April of 1995. I still remember. And, you know, we were just all excited. Everybody wanted to see it because it was like you had, like, two of the best black comedians on TV coming together in one movie. I mean, it was crazy, man. And me and my cousin went to go see it at Southgate Movie Theater in Bedford Heights. And it was a packed house, man. I mean, Bad Boys was sold out. Every seat in that theater was filled, man. And it was just a fun afternoon showing. Everybody laughed at the jokes. Everybody reacted to it. It was just a fun day at the movies, you know. And it's the way movies should be. It's kind of the reason that I always wanted to be a professional filmmaker and get paid for it and be an actor and all that stuff, because it's a group participation thing. And when everybody is having fun and enjoying just the thrill of watching the movie, that's what it's all about, you know. Now, on to, so I'm getting away from my nostalgia. And Bad Boys was a hit when it came out. It was a hit. I don't think it was like it made a lot of money. You know, it wasn't like a super gigantic Independence Day hit, which was the next year for Will Smith. But it made a lot of money. And now, so nostalgia aside, and I'm going to get into Bad Boys 2 towards the end of the review, unfortunately, because I have to talk about that. But, you know, looking at the film, and I've seen the film hundreds of times since it's come out over the years, and looking at the film again, it's still just a goofball 90s action comedy movie. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. Even at the time, I couldn't figure out why reviews were hard on it. Like, I remember seeing Siskel and Ebert, and they were just like, oh, it's cliched, and Martin is the family man, Will Smith is the playboy, and accident drug dealers. And I remember a review in the Plain Dealer at the time, because I used to always read the arts section Friday, and they'd have the reviews of brand new movies. And I remember the arts section was pretty harsh on it too. And I think I don't know what it was they were looking for. You know what I mean? it's just a goofball, fun action comedy movie with two comedians having a good time. So I don't understand it, but even still now, watching the film now as an adult, nostalgia aside, I still think that it's just a goofball, fun movie. Like, there's some movies that I can look at now and kind of go like, maybe it's not as enjoyable. But I still think this movie is a lot of fun. And like, nostalgia aside, and this was when Michael Bay was just all the Michael Bay-isms that everybody pretty much hates now. This is when it was so cool, because that's one of the things about the movie. And also, this is a special edition DVD, so it's got a commentary track. And Michael Bay does fabulous commentary tracks. But the thing about it is Michael Bay even states on the commentary track that Columbia didn't believe in this movie. And as a matter of fact, the late Don Simpson didn't believe in the movie. He read the script and was like, the script is horrible, it's horrible. And even Michael Bay himself admits that the script isn't good for the movie. Michael Bay actually really even admits himself that the movie is not particularly that good. He admits that the reason Bad Boy works is because of Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. You know what I mean? And really, his direction, its style of the movie, that's really the driving force behind it, And Michael Bay basically says that the studio didn't believe in him, and strangely, this was a very low budget movie. I mean, I think the overall budget Michael Bay said was like $15 million, but they actually had, after you paid everybody, he said they were left with like $8 million, I think, or something like that to shoot, which is very low budget for a movie like of this kind of thing, of a cop action kind of thing. And I will say that it wasn't until I listened to the commentary track that I could actually spot how low budget this movie is. But the fact that Michael Bay is a fantastic director, and Michael Bay is a fantastic director. It's just, I think he's gotten comfortable in the way he does his movies, and they make money, so he doesn't step out of that comfort zone. But, as... what was the movie? 45. What was the movie? 13 Hours. As the movie 13 Hours just showed, he's I can't believe I forgot the name of the movie. The one with the army movie that I just reviewed, and I forgot the name already. Whatever it's called. But Michael Bay is a fantastic director. You know what I mean? When he actually can do stuff in the style of The Rock, and even stuff like this first effort. But Michael Bay said that the studio didn't believe in him, and they were actually like trying to not let them shoot certain scenes, like the scene at the end of the movie where Martin Lawrence goes, "Forgot your boarding pass," and shot the guy. Michael Bay paid for that with his own check. And then Columbia Pictures paid him back after the movie made a lot of money, but they weren't even going to let him shoot the big payoff to the action scene. The audience wants to see you kill the guy who killed Tayloni's friend Max. Come on, man. You got to have that in an action movie. The bad guy's got to get his dessert, and they didn't want to let the man shoot it. And I guess also, too, there's little hints that Michael Bay says in the commentary track that they didn't believe that the movie could make a lot of money because it had two black leads, which is so sad and pitiful that in 1994, when they shot the film in late 94, but just the fact that it could be the 90s and people still are on this garbage now, man. It boggles my mind that people are still on this, man. I'd like to believe that the human race is a little bit farther ahead than this, but, God, just stupid. But, Michael Bay basically said they didn't believe in the movie. So, Martin Lawrence and Tayloni and Will Smith and him and all the actors on this production basically had to come together and just, basically, a lot of the script is improv. And when you really watch the movie, and Michael Bay points it out in the commentary, how there's a lot of things in the movie that kind of don't really make sense. It doesn't really, the story doesn't really flow like it should. So there's like big chunks of scenes where like they explain what has happened before. Well, really, if the storytelling is going good, then you kind of understand it as it's happening. You know what I mean? But, Michael Bay says, they really didn't have a good script to work with, but they had two young, fantastic comedians, and they had Michael Bay's fantastic visual style, and they just went from there, And Martin and Will Smith are just on fire in this movie. I think Will Smith was 29 and I think Martin might have been 30 or 31, but they were really young dudes. And you can see Martin was at the height of his game, man. I mean, him and Will Smith's energy is just, they're on fire. They're coming up with the stuff that they're coming up with comedically in this movie. You could tell is just not written. I mean, like, just they just do stuff. And the funny thing is, listen to the commentary. A lot of this stuff would just happen while they were filming. You know, like the bit where Martin almost steps on the dog when the assassins come to kill T.A. Leone. That was a total accident. Martin almost really tripped over that dog, but it just happened. You know what I mean? And just like, you know, she's talking about the bologna is made out of different animal parts, and they improv that. This was so, and Martin going, "Tell him something, Joe," and all of that stuff was improv. And I think it's the other one where Martin gets beat up in Club Hell, and then he goes, "Who toe off and whooped your ass?" Now, all that stuff they came up with on it. Just like 90% of the stuff comedically that the three of them were doing. And I also might add, I'm going to give Tia Leone credit too, because she bounces off of them real good. She really completes the three of them. The three of them had really good chemistry together. And I mean, just comedically, the stuff that the three of them were doing in this film, and even Joe Pantoliano from The Goonies, the brother Fratelli, he does some really good stuff too. There's just fantastic comedy bits in this movie, man, that unfortunately, when the sequel came, which was way too late, it just couldn't emulate that energy. And I think this just shows sometimes when you don't have your resources and you're really just giving it your all with all your heart, and you don't have all the resources and nobody believes in you, kind of like what Sylvester Stallone always, you know, talks about, never giving up and giving it your all and all that. You can really put out something regardless of the lack of resources that you might have. And you can really see the difference, because when they came out with Bad Boys 2, which I'm gonna get on that at the end of the review, you can really just see the big difference in quality. Now, I'm not trying to say either Bad Boys film is a quality film. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that on the first movie, they were all young dudes, young women. They didn't have the resources and nobody believed in them, and they just came together with all their creative inspiration and energy and made a very entertaining, fun movie. And they came up with really funny jokes just off the top of their heads. That's brilliant. You know, so, you know, getting off of the brilliant comedic aspects of this, because this is a funny movie, man. I mean, these jokes just still play. This movie's hilarious. Michael Bay's cinematography is fantastic. Of course, all the stuff that the signature dolly shots and the quick whip pans and all of that, it all looks fantastic. You know, Michael Bay is kind of a little bit stealing a little bit from Tony Scott here, so you got a little bit of that Top Gun, Days of Thunder, The Last Boy Scout kind of warm, filtered look to the film, which I really love that. And the film takes place in Miami, so it really should have that warm, hot look. You know what I mean? And I really I just love that look. And I loved it when they do it in Top Gun and all the Bruckheimer movies. It just looks fantastic. I love that. I love all the dolly shots. They weren't overused at this point. They were really cool back then. You know, and the music video style of Michael Bay is really at play here. You know, the action sequences, Michael Bay in the commentary, he really beats up the action sequences pretty bad. I kind of think it's a mixed bag. I think there's some action sequences in the film, like the bathroom fight in Club Hell, which is such a cool idea for a club and for some drug dealing bad guys to go. I just think it's just cool. It's a creepy, icky kind of place, and it's just like some place that narcotics cops would go to look for bad guys, you know? So it's perfect for that. But that bathroom fight is really good. It's brutal. And then, of course, that cap off that always grosses everybody out is when he slams the dude's face into the urinal with the piss in it, which Michael Bay says on the commentary is actually 7-Up and like club soda and like apple juice or something like that. So, but regardless, I think that was an abandoned bank and that was a real urinal. I don't know if you could have paid me enough to stick I would have said, man, you guys got to bring in like a fake like dummy urinal. I'm not putting my head in that thing. I don't care how old this place is, and I don't care how much you sterilize it either. That's a cool scene. And of course, the foot chase through Miami where Will Smith is doing the slow motion thing. That's a classic, really good chase scene. And the actual finale shootout, which Michael Bay says in the commentary, some of the stuntmen look like stuntmen, and I would agree with that because they don't really, their acting is not really on point. They kind of just look like stunt guys, But that's okay. It's still fun. And that car chase between the Porsche and I don't know what that other car. I think it's a Jaguar, I guess. The way that is shot, which I think Michael Bay said he shot it with these long lenses, and you could see the heat as it bubbles up in the frame. Fantastic car chase, and this is what I like. This was at a time when when Michael Bay didn't have all these resources, so the best action sequence happens at the end of the movie. Something they just did not do in the second film, which I hate. Now Michael Bay just puts big action sequences like from the beginning of the movie all the way through, and I hate that. Action sequences should build. The action sequences that aren't so good in the movie is definitely the one on the ether truck. And even Michael Bay knocks it on the commentary. It's not a good chase. It's cheesy, but the style kind of hides that it's not that good of a car chase, And really, I guess I can think. And then kind of the shootout in the apartment. Michael Bay talks about that too. Is when you're low budget filmmaking. Sometimes when you shoot in certain places, you got to use the crews that are in the local area. So that's why, like when the bad guys shoot open Tieloni's door and it comes out like in a giant circle, it wasn't meant to look like that. It was just that was the local talent, and they weren't like the highest end special effects guys. So that's why it blew out like that. And Michael Bay knocks it in the commentary. But it was a really good thing to know, for people who want to get into business like myself and other people. But that action sequence is not really that good either. But it's okay. And I also want to add that Mark Mancina does the music for the film, who did music for Fair Game with Cindy Crawford and William Baldwin. Fantastic action picture, but horrible movie. Did the music for Speed, and unfortunately Speed 2 Cruise Control. He did the music for Training Day. He's tons of movies. He didn't do the music for the second one, and I think Michael Bay didn't like the score or something like that. That's what I remember hearing or reading online. But, Mark Mancina does his kind of, signature kind of 90s kind of upbeat, kind of rhythmy, techno-y kind of orchestral score that he used in Speed, and that he almost mocked 100% for Fair Game, which I think was the same year, this Fair Game might have been after. I think Fair Game was in the winter of 95 and Bad Boys was in the spring, so he must have got hired after he did Bad Boys. But either way, I mean, it's just and also too, I want to talk about the bad guys. I love that the bad guys, they are typical drug dealing, bad guys with all the guns. But Taki Cario, who was the bad guy in Kiss of the Dragon, and he was in La Femme Nikita, the original version of before Point of No Return came out with Bridget Fonda in 1992. He's a fantastic, intense villain. This guy lives his parts, man, and he's very evil. I still know that the scene that most people have a problem with in the movie is where Fouget and his buddies kill Max. Which, it's. I remember a girlfriend who I used to date at the time. She used to tell me how much she hated that scene. Like when we watched it, it was like long after the movie had come out. But I remember she didn't like that scene. I remember reading Roger Ebert didn't like the scene. A lot of people really. I remember even in the theater when Fouget goes, "Don't you like a woman who takes pride in her appearance?" And then he goes, "Don't you?" And he goes, "I hate when a bitch lets herself slide." I remember the whole theater was like, "Ooh," and you could hear the gas. And it's a nasty, cruel scene, but it sets up our villains. Our villains are vicious. They're ruthless. They don't care. They're psychopaths. They're drug-dealing psychopaths, which is what they're supposed to be. So then in the end, when Will Smith kills him, when he shoots the other guy out the airplane hatch, I mean, you want them to get it. They're mean, evil guys. It is a nasty scene. And interestingly, Michael Bay said that the actress who played Max was getting frightened for real when they shot that scene. And I guess that really was the Al Capone suite where they shot that scene. And I guess people had been killed in there for real. And Michael Bay said that everybody was just spooked out because of what had happened. And I guess the girl, Taki Cario and all the guys got into, pretending to kill her. And I guess she started crying. She freaked out for real while they were shooting the scene. Really interesting stuff. But they're great bad guys. They're brutal. And it's a good action picture. It's a good action picture comedy. Is it perfect? No, but I still think they put forth a very good effort. You know what I mean? To me, I'd say Michael Bay's best films would be The Rock, the first Bad Boys, and then I'd say The Island. Those are my favorite. Which The Island bombed when it came out. Those are my favorite Michael Bay pictures. I really like them. I'm going to touch on Bad Boys 2 a little bit. I don't like Bad Boys 2 at all. It's the complete opposite of what this film is. Bad Boys 2 is like a $150 million budget. And don't get me wrong, the action in this is fantastic. But I think what they missed is that, I'll give you an example. The first Bad Boys, the scene where, the cruel scene where they kill Max, right? And the scene where they find the guy's body with the maggots and his hands are pinned to the table. And the scene where he throws the guy's face into the urinal, right? You take those three scenes and you expand them into 2.5 hours. That's Bad Boys 2. Bad Boys 2 is just... And see, that's what I notice about Michael Bay. When you do these hardcore action films and stuff like Cliffhanger or Die Hard 2 or Lethal Weapon 2, when they're really hard and they're mean and they have very dark spots, you have to keep it balanced. You have to keep the darkness kind of within its own little realm. You don't overdo the audience with too much of it, but you keep the light tone too, so it's a balance. Bad Boys 2 is just overboard on the cruelty. It's overboard on the action. It's overboard. It's just forced humor. Martin looks tired. Will Smith, I think Will is there to pay his penance because, Bad Boys shot him to movie stardom. But I just don't feel like... I feel like they had too much resources. I just don't feel like the effort is there. I just feel like they had millions of dollars so they could cruise through the movie. And that's how I felt. I just didn't feel the same passion behind Bad Boys 2 like I did the first one. Humor's forced. It's an obnoxious movie. Very racist movie. I just didn't like it. The jokes aren't funny. I don't think Will and Martin are funny. There's maybe a couple jokes in it that work, but Martin's energy is sorely lacking. Will Smith is kind of running the show in that movie, kind of bullying Martin. And it's 2.5 hours. It's bloated. It's obnoxious. Mark Mancina's score isn't there. It's an awful movie. It's just an awful, obnoxious, horrible movie. And I remember the Plain Dealer at the time gave it like a 1 star. I mean, I hate Bad Boys 2. I will say, the Ku Klux Klan action sequence is really awesome because that's cool to see that happen the way that went down in that movie. Cool action sequence. Will Smith with the 2 guns, awesome. The freeway chase, awesome. The Haitian shootout where it goes 360 degrees in the apartment, awesome. After that Haitian shootout, everything afterwards, the movie just kind of lost me. The stuff with the dead bodies and seeing the chick with the big tits while she's dead, and they're talking about necrophilia, and I'm like, what? And then the scene where they were overly cruel to the kid for no reason. I was like, what the hell happened with this movie, man? I was shocked when I saw Bad Boys 2. I think the freeway chase would have worked had it happened at the end of the picture, but it happens like 30 minutes into the movie. That should have been the end of the movie right there, but it wasn't to be. I don't like the movie. I just hate it. I hate it. I own it on DVD because I bought it from some video store that was closed, and it was on sale for $2. So I can breeze through it for the cinematography and the action sequences in the earlier part of the movie, and it's a 2-disc edition, so they talk about how they filmed a lot of scenes and stuff. But but the only credit I could give Bad Boys 2 is that it's absolutely ruthless with no humanity. At least I can say, when you watch Die Hard 2, or if you watch The Last Boy Scout, if you watch Cliffhanger, Or even Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. You know what I mean? Those are action pictures that are hardcore, but they never lose the humanity. The humanity is still there. And I kind of, at least even in this first one there is. So I'm done ranting about Bad Boys 2, and I'm done with my review of the first Bad Boys. Bad Boys 1, fantastic movie. Definitely a piece of 90s cheese nostalgia. That's my review of Bad Boys. Thumbs up the video. Subscribe to the channel. Share the video. Comment down below about Bad Boys, Bad Boys 2. You can even comment about The Rock or Michael Bay or Mark Mancino, the performances, whatever, Tia Loney, you know, with her skinny long legs, you know, just whatever. Let's just talk about Bad Boys, you know what I mean? Everything Bad Boys, okay? My next movie review is just kind of going to be on the fly. I think I've decided that what my next series is going to be is raunchy comedies from the 80s and the 90s and through the 2000s. So that's going to be my next series of reviews. RMJ Movie Reviews, and I will see you soon.